Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. I'm your host. They released the July inflation numbers, and they're saying, oh, it's down 0.2%. And everybody in the mainstream media is running just that headline. They're trying to make you seem like that everything is going the way how does Christy Freeland like to put it? The plan is working. However, unfortunately for them, I live in the real world, and I go outside and I see the costs of things, and I look online and I do a little bit of research, and I start to ask people that I know, and I put out feelers and I run surveys. And the indication that the inflation is down month over month is just not accurate. Things have gotten, food especially, has only gotten more and more expensive. I mean, like I said the other day, I saw 10 hot dogs for $13. And in my mind, hot dogs are not supposed to be that kind of money. That's inflation. That's other factors. But I said, let me have a look at the report, and I have done that. So now I'm going to break it down for you in a way that hopefully will make it simplified and so that you can understand exactly the point that I'm trying to make. However, before I get into it, I would encourage you all to like, comment, subscribe on this video. Share this with all of your socials. I'm up against a lot of censorship, and I get turned down in the algorithm quite often. So when you hit the notification bell, that'll come right into your feed, and then you can share that with other people that you know. I also have open memberships if you wish to support the channel further. Either way, I appreciate the support that you give me. So let's start with establishing a couple of things. First of all, sometimes they tell you inflation month over month, which is to say June versus July, versus May versus April, April versus March. And sometimes when they want to make it seem like everything is rosy, they release the inflation numbers as it compares to the same month a year ago. So when you see them release those numbers recently, the July numbers, they're comparing to a year over year, which is to say that this time last year, not last month. Now before I establish how bad the numbers actually are, I want you to just listen to the annual consumer price index for 2023, the calendar year of 2023, released on January 16th of this year. The consumer price index, CPI, rose 3.9% on an annual average basis in 2023, following a 40-year high increase of 6.8% in 2022 and a 3.4% increase in 2021. Aside from 2022, the annual average increase in 2023 is the largest since 1991. Excluding energy, the annual average CPI rose 4.5% in 2023 compared with 5.7% in 2022. Now you hear those numbers and you're running out of fingers to try and keep track of which way it's all going, and that's in part designed for that. So this one paragraph, however, says everything that we need to understand for the particular report that was released today. The CPI rose 3.9% in 2023 against 2022, where in 2022 it rose almost 7%, and in 2021 it rose 3.4%. So what we have to look at here is we see a number. In 2020, this was the number. Then it went up 3.4%. So now it stays at that number. The next year, 6.8 comes off of this increased number, right? So 3.4 and 6.8 are 10.2. So now we come into 2023, 10.2% inflation over 2020. We add to that 3.9% more. So basically 14% in 3 years, inflation. Now they're saying, oh, don't worry, because in 2023, inflation in July was 0.2% higher than it is this year, but still 14% higher than it was when 2020 kicked in. which is way above this average that they always try to tell you per annum and all the rest of that stuff. And don't forget that all of these numbers are measured against 2002, not 1991. What they said was in 1991, there was a high cost of living increase. And since 1991, the next highest was 2022 and then 2023. So all of those other years, the inflation was normal. It was controllable. People were making money. And then all of a sudden, boom, inflation through the roof, making hot dogs cost, 10 of them cost $13 in the store. All right, so now we come to the report that was released on the 20th of August of 2024. The consumer price index rose 2.5% on a year-over-year basis in July. So they're saying that it's 2.5% compared to last July. And remember, when they say rose, the number gets smaller, increasing at the slowest pace since March of 2021. So we have now gone back 3 years to decide this number that the press wants to tell you, and Chrystia Freeland is going to try to run around and call a victory, when in reality, it's 0.2% lower than it was last July, the second highest inflation year since 1991. Are you with me so far? Are you keeping track of how they're trying to throw this number at you? But in reality, what we should be saying is we want inflation rates to go back to where they were in 2019. Let's talk about those kind of numbers, shall we please? The slowest pace since 2021 and down from a 2.7% gain in June of 2024. Decelerating in headline inflation was Deceleration in headline inflation was broad-based, stemming from lower prices for travel tours, vehicle passengers, and electricity. Passenger vehicles and electricity. So what they just said there was the inflation came down from 12 months ago because of vacations. Cars are apparently a little bit less expensive, which is ridiculous when you consider the amount of trouble the Liberal government is putting us through to make everybody go electric. And electricity overall has gone down cheaper. However, and this is the important part, on a monthly basis, the CPI rose 0.4% in July after falling 0.1% in June. Gasoline prices increased month over month in July by 2.4%. Gasoline prices increased month over month in July by 2.4%. So in June, gas was a certain price, and then in July, gas was 2.4% higher. Now we are into August, and who knows how bad the numbers are. Putting upward pressure on the monthly CPI figure. On a seasonally adjusted monthly basis, the CPI rose 0.3% in July. So all of a sudden now, we are talking about the expenses between June to July being 0.3% higher, not lower. They got to go back 12 months. So you can see how they attempt to manipulate this number to make you think that the Liberals are pulling it off. But when you go to the store, you say to yourself, it doesn't make any sense because everything around me costs a lot more. Well, as long as fuel prices are on the rise, everything else will increase because we move everything with fuel. So the person who's driving the truck got to charge a little more. The person who's got the Uber got to charge a little more. The individual who's trying to bring it in, now that the trains are going on strike, you don't even want to see how high prices are going to go. Here's a factor that they because when the thing that you got to understand is they make these baskets, right? They call them baskets, and they put together all of these items around your daily life, and they do them region by region. So lower prices for travel-related services compared to a year ago. A year ago, who was traveling? And now you're saying, oh, don't worry. because the guy at the border is not going to make me install the ArriveCan app? I mean, I'm confused as to why this would even be something that we're talking about. However, it was enough of a downward trend that it put pressure on the inflation and made the number look smaller. Prices for passenger vehicles continued to decline. Prices for passenger vehicles fell 1.4% year over year in July, following a 0.4% decline in June. The deceleration was driven by slower price growth for new vehicles, which is only up 1%, as inventory levels improved compared to July of 2023. At the same time, prices for used vehicles fell 5.7% in July. So they're now including used vehicles in this price that they're trying to convince you that the economy is better because used cars are now 5% cheaper than they were a year ago. But they're 0.3% more expensive than they were last month. Gasoline prices rise at a faster rate. Year over year, gasoline prices rose at a faster pace in July, 1.9% over 12 months. Compared with June, which was 0.4%, prices accelerated the most in the prairie provinces, particularly attributed to the reduction of supply amid a refinery shutdown in the Midwestern United States. I say it again, why are we buying our gasoline from any country but our own? Oh, we might have to cut down a tree to build a refinery in Saskatchewan or Alberta or someplace that's close where we can refine it and take the job away from the guy in the Midwestern United States. I'm okay with that. I don't think that we should be buying I don't think we should have any Saudi crude in any of our pumps. I don't think we should have. And now all of a sudden there's such a shortage of refineries that one thing goes wrong and all of a sudden fuel prices out in the West, where the Liberals don't have any seats, they jump up 2%. In farmer country, yeah? Or cattle country, whatever. Year over year, prices rose at a slower pace in July compared to June in 5 provinces. Price growth slowed the most in PEI, Nova Scotia, due to deceleration in gas prices for gasoline and fuel oil and other fuels, because the government's been giving them that subsidy, right? Because the refinery in New Brunswick takes in crude oil from Saudi Arabia and puts out prices around there closer, right? Slower year-over-year growth in shelter prices. Year-over-year prices for shelter rose slower at 5.7 compared with June. So what they just said there is, in June, prices of last June to this June had gone up. I think I remember it being 8%. I did a video on it. However, in July, it only went up 5.7%. So in the middle of the summer, prices are still nearly 6% higher than they were last July for rentals. How's that working out, this fairness for every generation? How's that working out for we're going to build 4 million magical homes like we got pixie sticks and we're just going to wave a magic wand? None of the policies that the Liberals have implemented are working. Absolutely none of them. These numbers support a completely different picture of the economy. These numbers support an economy that is being driven and held together with duct tape and wishes. The only reason that they are pushing this narrative of having to do it last year is, once, they don't have to tell you it's something that isn't true. They're just cutting the truth to a hair, as thin as they can get it. And what they're really trying to do is the thing that the bank needs the most is consumer confidence. Because only through consumer confidence, because the consumer has lost confidence. They know this by the way that people are not spending any money anymore. They know this by the way people are not buying all of those tiny little condos in downtown Toronto. So without consumer confidence, people are not going to spend their money. People are going to hold on to their money because they don't have any confidence that the government is going to be able to provide for them an economy that will allow them to borrow, use credit cards, things of that nature, invest in things, buy, the second or the third car, buy a car for the teenager, all of those kinds of situations. So by trying to improve consumer confidence, they are hoping that you will begin to spend, and then they can tell you by October that everything is wonderful and everything is rosy. That's, of course, in a fantasy land. Everything is not wonderful and everything is not rosy. Everything is, in fact, much higher than it was And it is continuing to increase. And now we're coming into the fall when everybody is really going to start to panic, right? Now the cold will start to come. So prices of other commodities will begin to increase because those typically increase during these kinds of times of year. And the government has quietly announced that instead of making 3 million homes by 3031, they're going to make 4 million. I don't see how changing that number is going to change the fact that a house has to be built in a certain way. Now, I suppose that's a different video. This video, I just wanted you to see the reality of the situation, the solid numbers that are there. These are their numbers. I simply just deciphered them for you in a way that is truthful and comprehensive. Hopefully, it's comprehensive. You can let me know down in the comments. All right, I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next time.